Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. At this very hour, protests are happening across the country for the third straight night over the election of Donald Trump as President of the United States. We will be monitoring the scene throughout the hour. After adopting a relatively conciliatory tone in the first 48 hours after his victory, Trump last night abandoned that posture to assail the protesters, tweeting, "Just at a very open and successful presidential election, now professional protesters incited by the media are protesting. Very unfair." It's the sort of thing we saw a lot during the campaign, but coming from the president-elect of the United States, it was a remarkably ominous sentiment. Colleagues in media and activism, please know this is a warning shot, tweeted New Yorker's Jelani Cobb. Consider exactly what the president-elect of the United States was suggesting, that the tens of thousands of people you've been seeing right now, live, out on the streets, expressing their First Amendment right to free speech and peaceful assembly, they're, quote, professional protesters, that it's part of a plot, and that their presence can be blamed on the media. It was no less than the man who will soon be the most powerful person in the world, assailing both the expression of freedom of assembly and the institutions of a free press covering that constitutionally protected activity. The tweet sat at the top of Trump's feed for all to see for 9 full hours until this morning, when Trump followed up with this: "Love the fact that the small groups of protesters last night have passion for our great country. We will all come together and be proud." Joining me now, filmmaker Michael Moore, whose new film is Michael Moore in Trumpland. And you've been monitoring these protests. They've been happening, I think,
I've been part of them.
I've been part of them. They've been quite organic. I mean, that is, nothing could be further than the truth.
The first night, I was just in a cab going to a documentary meeting, and all the traffic got stopped. And I said, "What's going on?" "Oh, there's a protest out there. Let me out." And I just joined it. I mean, that is literally, no memo has gone out to anybody. This is just organically happening, and it's happening all across the country, not just in the big cities. It's happening in mid-sized cities. It was in Nashville and Milwaukee last night, and I just got photographs.
Yeah, we may have it or we may not, but describe it.
Oh yeah, well, they just sent me from the town that I live in Michigan. It's a small town of 14,000 people. This is just an hour or so ago, and they've already taken to the streets in Traverse City, Michigan. I mean, if it's happening in Traverse City, Michigan, all right, and it's you know it's going on everywhere. So I encourage everybody who's listening right now to tweet your photos, put them on Facebook, send them here to Chris, send them to MSNBC. I mean, let people see this. Use social media. This is a powerful moment. And frankly, as soon as Chris and I are done talking, turn the TV off or hit record. Then turn it off. Then go out. Find it, and if it's not happening in your neighborhood, make it happen. Call up some friends, call up some neighbors. This is going to go on all night tonight.
Let me ask you this. I mean, what we've seen a real sort of reinvigoration of street protest in the last, I would say, 5 years in the Obama presidency. I think Occupy Wall Street, which started in September 2011, Black Lives Matter movement, some of the direct action that's been done on the environmental front, particularly the DAPL, Dakota Access Pipeline, where there's been a standoff, and it's been an incredibly brave showing of nonviolent force. Where do you see that going? Because it seems to me that this is an expression of civil society, certain segments of society saying, we do not approve of the rhetoric you've used or the plans that you've laid out. We do not approve of our fellow citizens being targeted. And then what? How does that build power to your mind?
Okay, well, first of all, this is going to grow larger than anything that we've seen in recent memory. It's going to grow from last night to tonight, then to tomorrow night, and the next night. So phase one right now is just people get up out of the chair, go out into the street. Be peaceful, but be heard. I predict this is going to be a very large thing. It's going to lead to, on Inauguration Day, over 1 million people in Washington, D.C. There's already a huge call out. Some people are calling it the Million Woman March. Or if you're a guy, you can say Million Woman plus one.
Right.
But it's going to be massive. It's going to be massive. Different local organizations are going to grow out of this because we're going to have to be very active to stop these Supreme Court nominations,
right.
to stop, to do what we need to do to take over the Democratic Party and put it in the hands of the people who are the Democratic Party, the progressive people that are the party. That's already started to happen today with Keith Ellison.
Right. So we're gonna talk about that, and you have this to-do list here that I want to get to. But before we get to that, one of the things I think there's this fascinating political argument being had among all sorts of different parts of the ideological spectrum. There's conservatives and paleocons that I'm in touch with. There's Republicans, and then there's a big fight brewing in the left, the center left, progressives, the left, liberals. One of the things I want to hear from you is, it seems to me the way that this has been described is that resisting or opposing Trump and also reaching out to some segment that feels left behind, particularly a subsection of his voters, particularly a subsection of his white working class voters. How do you see those two things in tension or parallel?
Well, I think, first of all, the white working class that mistakenly voted for him, and they're going to find out very soon just what an awful decision that was that they made. They're angry. They have a right to be angry, but they used him as a means for their revenge against the system. We won't be able to convince them right now. Right. They're going to have to find out. He's going to make their lives even worse as a result of electing him. Our job right now really is to just not do a whole lot of thinking. Don't hold a whole lot.
I get nervous when someone says that as political advice.
No,
I really do.
No, seriously, you know this. You don't want to overthink things, right? You must have dated at some point in your life. Yes. Don't overthink things, Chris.
Thank you, Mike.
You have to be spontaneous. You have to go, yeah, that's right. I've sat here for the last 2 or 3 days, depressed, upset. How did this happen? How is it that the person who got the most votes is not the president of the United States?
The Electoral College.
Oh, yes. Well, we can't change that. We can't change that by next Tuesday. But we can. This must not pass. This must not. We can't keep this going. I'm just encouraging people right now. It's okay to operate on your raw energy and emotion because our voices must be. Look at Trump's tweet. The tweet you just showed. He's talking about just had a great presidential election, and now these protesters are out here. Very unfair, very unfair. You know, that he's rattled already?
Right.
I mean, this should be the happiest week of his life.
We should
and
know.
He's up, you know.
It is a remarkable thing. I think a lot of people across all sorts of parts of the ideological spectrum were really taken aback by the tweet last night, although no one should be surprised.
But all protesters, be honored by this, that he's already the thin-skinned Donald Trump. Imagine what's going to happen when the crowds double tonight and triple tomorrow night, because that's what's going to happen.
What do you say to people who say what you are advocating is only going to raise the temperature and heighten the contradictions in a country that is in an incredibly polarized and frankly dangerous place?
No, not.
You don't think the country's in a dangerous place?
It's only dangerous because a sociopath who is a racist and a misogynist and got elected by presenting an agenda of misogyny and racism. That's how he built his core base. That's how he got in there. Then he manipulated the final 20% who are not racist, but are just angry at the system, and he knew that. And so he says, I'm getting rid of NAFTA for you, and I'm gonna stop those cars being made in Mexico and all this. And it made it sound like music to their ears. And so they were deceived by him.
You must have Trump voters in your life.
I don't have them in my personal life. They've all been removed. No, seriously. Everybody who's white has Trump voters in their extended family. Yeah. Thanksgiving is coming up.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll deal with that. But I think I live in Michigan. I live that city you just showed there.
Traverse City, yeah.
Traverse City. The city itself just went 59% for Hillary. For Bernie, they went 70% in the primary. But the county we live in just voted for Trump.
For Trump, yeah.
And the counties around us that went for Obama
also
in the last went for Trump.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. We've got to reach out to them when it's appropriate. But right now, let me tell you something. The Trump machine is already way down the field. They're already planning these nominations, these positions they're going to fill. The first, I mean,
Obamacare repeal, financial deregulation.
He's
Paul
not
Ryan. You talked about this. I want to get to this to-do list next, but I got to say this because you mentioned it, the bait and switch. And Paul Ryan is floating Medicare privatization. Now think about this for a moment. That is a position opposed by both major party candidates, opposed by Donald Trump and opposed by Hillary Clinton, voted for by no one. And it's totally possible that that's something the Republican Party tries.
He's talking about it as if it's a thing. And I'm going to tell you, those first 100 days, how about the first 10 days? Seriously, Capitol Hill, it's going to look like a Marx Brothers movie where they're just going to be whipping. Who's got a bill? I got a bill. Yeah. Who's got a bill? Another bill. All those in favor. Ding! All those in favor. Ding! You know, this is how it's going to go. It's going to go like that. And we're over to the White House to sign. And liberals are going to be like, whoa, wait a minute. Wait, that's not fair. You know? Yeah. Get the game face on, everybody, now, because they are deadly serious about this, and it will be years before we undo the damage of their first 10 days.
All right, so quickly, remember Clinton won the popular vote, which you mentioned is number 5 in your list.
Yeah, never forget that.
There are 4 more. Take over the Democratic Party?
Yes, immediately. Remove them all.
Fire pundits who won't acknowledge reality?
I see the desk is mostly empty here tonight. Thank you, Chris. Next.
Thank you for sparing me your purge. Dems in Congress who won't fight must go. Primary them.
That's absolutely.
That's what the Tea Party did.
No,
People forget. The first thing the Tea Party did wasn't go after Democrats.
That's
right.
right.
I mean, it did in terms of
right away.
It showed up at those town halls. But electorally, the first thing the Tea Party really did was primary Republicans.
At the spring break
right.
for Congress.
That's right.
This coming spring.
Hall.
We are town halling these Democrats. And if they are not standing in front of Trump and blocking his nominations to the Supreme Court, if they are not committed to a filibuster, we are going to put them on notice that we are going to primary them in 2 years, and we're going to run candidates that are going to win. And I personally am going to be part of that process to make that happen.
And finally, although it's number 4 on your list, stop saying you're stunned.
Yeah, stop. Well, white people say they're stunned because, you know, no, but I didn't see this coming. If you're black or Hispanic, you know, if you're gay, if you've suffered under the oppressiveness of this system, you were not surprised by Donald Trump from day one. And when you heard him say on day one that Mexicans were rapists and murderers, you knew right then that there was trouble and there was going to be hell to pay.
The train was coming.
The train was coming.
Speaking of train coming, we got images right now of Atlanta, which is one of the many places that people have been assembling peacefully, we should note, for protests to express their opposition to the president-elect of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Michael Moore, thank you for being with me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. And, you know, come on out, too, this weekend. I mean, I know you have to be a journalist and all that, but you're also a citizen of this country.
I'm a citizen.
Yes.
That's true.
Right? And in a democracy, that means you're an activist.
All right, up next, the great Rachel Maddow joins me to talk about the massive conflicts in Donald Trump's transition team and the media's responsibility as the Trump presidency approaches. That's after the break. And later,